Hey y'all, welcome and welcome back to another adult movie review. Today we're going to be taking a look at Haunted from Monster High. Now, some of you might be saying, Rain, hold on a second, what about Freaky Fusion? Because Freaky Fusion was next chronologically and you said you were going to do Freaky Fusion next. And you're right, that was supposed to be the next movie, and I tried, okay? I really did. I sat down to watch it, and I got about 18 minutes in, and I was like, I'm not having anything even close to fun watching this, but I still wanted to power through for you guys just because I wanted to be able to say that I watched all the movies, and I figured even if I didn't like it, because I haven't liked a lot of the Monster High movies, I could still make a video for you. But after 40 minutes getting through Freaky Fusion, I still was having a terrible time, like not even an ounce of fun. And beyond that, I didn't find that I had anything interesting to say. Like, I take notes as I watch the movies so that I can make these videos for you. And none of my notes were interesting. I honestly barely had any notes because I just thought it was boring. Like, I didn't think that it was fun or enjoyable, but not in a funny way, you know? So I didn't think that I would be able to make a video that would at least be an entertaining rant. I frankly just thought that if I made a video, it wouldn't be a good video and I'd be wasting your time, which is never something that I want to do intentionally. So I gave up, okay? I'm sorry. I know that that's probably disappointing to a lot of y'all, but I just couldn't get through it. I wasn't having a good time, and it wasn't even in a way that I feel like I could make entertaining for you guys, so it wasn't worth it at all. So instead, we are going to talk about Haunted, which is, in my opinion, an infinitely better movie. Now, if none of that made sense to you, you probably haven't seen this series that I've been doing on my channel. So to sum it up very quickly, I never saw any of the old Monster High media when I was younger, and so I have been going through and watching all of the webisodes and movies now and reviewing them as an adult. And so this is the first time that I've ever seen Haunted, and I'm here to give you all of my thoughts on it. Keyword there is it is just my thoughts. Definitely there are going to be some of y'all who disagree with me, and that's totally fine. It's not a big deal. I would love to hear what you guys think of this movie in the comments down below, because it's always interesting to hear different opinions, but just please don't be upset if we don't share the same opinion. Also, same warning that I give for all of these videos is that I will be discussing Haunted with like full spoilers. I just feel like it's a lot easier for me to give you my thoughts on the movie if I assume that you've seen it, and also it's been out for like, what, a decade almost at this point, so I feel like it's reasonable to talk with full spoilers. So if you haven't seen Haunted, go ahead and pause the video, go watch that real quick so that we're all on the same page, and then we can come back and discuss it together. And of course, if you guys do find yourself enjoying the video, if you could give it a like, that's very helpful to me. If you're new here and you enjoy your time, definitely subscribe so you can enjoy more of your time in the future. And if you want to go out of your way to support me, I have my P.O. Box, wish list, and a bunch of social media stuff in the description down below. Without further ado, let's start talking about Haunted. So I'm going to start out by complaining about something that I complain about a lot in my movie review series, and that is just that I feel like a lot of the basic premises and concepts of Haunted honestly just don't make a ton of sense. This is something that I definitely feel Monster High media back in like Gen 1 at least suffered from a lot. I just feel like a lot of the writing was kind of very surface level, and if you dig too deep, it's not hard at all to find holes, and sadly, that definitely was still a problem, at least in my opinion, with Haunted. So the whole movie hinges on the idea that there is a ghost world that is kind of parallel to the monster world, and none of the monsters know about this. Like, it's just a secret ghost world. The idea of like both worlds existing is honestly not that weird a concept, because like that's a thing that people and cultures believe in the real world, right? Like, that's an actual thing that people believe. And so I understand the idea of the ghost world existing in kind of conjunction with the world where monsters and humans live. But what I don't understand is the idea that no monster knows about the ghost world, especially the students at Monster High, because like there are ghosts who go to Monster High. Granted, they are supposed to keep the ghost world and Haunted High a secret, but frankly, I just find it very difficult to believe that out of all of these high school ghosts, none of them blabbed about the secret at all. And I also find it difficult to believe that none of the other monsters had questions about like where ghosts come from and stuff like that. And even beyond that, a lot of monsters within the Monster High canon are extremely long-lived. So like, I understand that it's implied that Haunted High and the ghost world has been like tucked away from the monster world for a very long time, and that like that's why it's a secret. But when you have vampires who can live thousands of years, is it really something that they wouldn't know about? Like, it's just a difficult thing for me to believe. And kind of jumping off from that, it is especially difficult for me to believe with the context of Draculaura. So like the plot of the movie kickstarts because Draculaura is being haunted by a ghost, and I just don't get it. Like I understand it's happening so that the plot can progress, but I've said before in these videos, having something happen in a movie just so that the plot can progress is not a good enough reason for it to be happening, and that's like the only reason I could explain why she'd be so freaked out by these hauntings. If Draculaura was someone who had always gone to an all-vampire school, and like if Monster High was an all-vampire school, maybe then I would understand a little bit more why ghostly activity would freak her out, because if she's only used to being around vampires and their powers, it might be more surprising and frightening to experience a ghost being around you. But she goes to Monster High with all kinds of different monsters, so she is seeing weird stuff on the daily. And also, as I said before, there are ghosts who go to Monster High. Like Spectra can just float out of a wall in front of her at any second. And for some reason, like, that's fine, and Dracula is not worried about that in any of the other movies or episodes, but this time she's like a little bit nervous when the ghosts do that, and she's especially frightened when it's an orb, not like a full-formed ghost. And I don't think it's a good premise. I have to be honest, I just don't think that it works. Like, if you or I suddenly saw objects floating around us, or like orbs of light following us around, that would probably freak us out, because that's not something that most people experience, right? Like, that's outside of our realm of normal, or at least it's outside of my realm of normal. I mean, maybe some of y'all are dealing with some hauntings, but like outside of my realm of normal, and I would say outside of probably most people's realm of normal. But for Draculaura, having a ghost around you is extremely normal, and so the idea that she's super freaked out by this is just hard for me to get behind. This isn't something that I thought ruined the entire movie. Like, it bothered me a lot, but I do think that the movie had enough other good stuff going on that it didn't make it unwatchable for me. I mean, obviously I finished it, but it is just frustrating because, again, it feels very surface level in the writing. It feels like the writers, I mean, it is written for kids, so I get that, but like, you can write a well-written kids movie. It feels like it was just, okay, throw this there, kids won't question it, just let it be. And it doesn't hold up under any level of scrutiny, and I couldn't make this review without mentioning it. So those of you who have been watching me for a while will probably know that the original Spectra doll, hopefully in frame somewhere back here, maybe not, she's on the far end, but she is like one of my favorite dolls of all time, and probably my favorite Gen 1 Monster High doll, mostly because she does have tons of nostalgic value and like personal value to me, and also she is a gorgeous doll, like objectively. But I was really sad to find that through the course of watching the old Monster High webisodes and movies, I didn't like her character as much as I liked her design. Up until Haunted, I felt like she just wasn't a character I enjoyed. Spectra, for me, felt very one note. All that we knew about her was that she enjoyed journalism, and she was someone who was constantly listening for hot gossip and was like, on it. Like, she's gonna publish that to her blog the instant she hears it, and that's it. That's all we got from her. And frankly, that didn't sound like a likable character to me, because as we see in Haunted, that is something that very easily could lead to a situation where she is like reporting so indiscriminately and not checking her facts that she could be publishing lies and she could be harming people. And so, as much as I wanted to love Spectra and as much as I loved her doll, up until Haunted, I didn't really like Spectra herself, and that still could be said for the beginning of Haunted. But amazingly, Spectra had some really good character growth in this movie, and I say amazingly because I don't think that Monster High is necessarily the best franchise for like extreme examples of character growth. I feel like characters might grow a little bit, but for the most part, they stay relatively the same throughout all of the media, and like, I understand why that is, but it is like something that kind of limits the writing. But within Haunted, Spectra actually did have a lot of development and really changed as a person. I won't go so far as to say that like outside of the scope of Monster High and inside the scope of just all media, Spectra's character development was like the most amazing and well-written and impactful thing ever, because it wasn't. Like, that would be a lie. But by Monster High standards, I feel like she did get to change a lot and in a really positive way. We saw her go from someone who, like I said, just kind of reports indiscriminately and just mostly reports gossip, to someone who really genuinely cares about the content of what she's writing, and she wants to make sure that what she is writing is true. And then even more than that, she wants to make sure that what she is writing is impactful in some way and is like being helpful rather than accidentally tearing people down. And it was just really, really lovely to see. It was very exciting for me to see this character that, like, I was honestly disappointed by turn into a character that I could relate to more, someone who loves to write and who wants to try to do good things. I just thought it was really, really wholesome to get to see. So while it wasn't like perfect in the sense that, I mean, it all happened within the course of one movie, so sometimes the pacing was a little bit weird, and like, you know how it is with some films, especially like I said, within the Monster High world, there's not always the most character growth, but it was really, really awesome to get to see her grow and see her become this character that I liked so much more than I did at the beginning of the movie. And I very, very much hope that if Spectra has any roles in upcoming films that I'm going to be watching, she gets to maintain that, because she was so much more enjoyable by the end of Haunted. So honestly, I did find the ending of this film a little bit disappointing. I will say I think part of that is just because of the kind of stories that I typically like. I think I've mentioned this before on this channel. I can't remember when, but I'm pretty sure I've said this before. I tend to like sad endings or like ambiguous endings to stories. I feel like most people tend to enjoy happy endings of some sort. Maybe it's bittersweet, but like there's some positive at the end of a story. But in like books and movies and stuff, I genuinely love tragedy. I love like sad stories. I like stories where maybe like a bad character gets a good ending. I just like stuff like that. So to be fair, watching kids media that is inherently written so that there is a happy ending is less likely to cater to my taste personally, but even within that scope, I do think the ending of Haunted was just dissatisfying, in a word. So at the end of the movie, you find out that Revenant, Haunted High's principal, is actually the Red Lady, who was an infamous ghost who was sentenced to a question mark number of years, probably centuries, of imprisonment for her crimes of haunting the monster world. And she has been giving her students detention as a way of like shedding chains from herself and giving them to other ghosts so that she can become free. And throughout the entire movie, I had this question, because before you find out, like I kind of knew halfway through, but before you find out for sure that Revenant and the Red Lady are the same person, I was like, who's punishing the Red Lady, right? Because like, who's the authority that is doing this to her? And apparently the answer is it was her. It was her own conscience trying to stop her. And like, I feel like that could be a good idea, but just not in the way it was executed within Haunted. For me, it felt like her change of heart happened extremely quickly. Literally within the space of 5 minutes, she goes from wanting to turn every monster at Monster High into a ghost so she can shed her chains more easily, to go back to haunting the monster world, to thinking, oh my gosh, I've made a terrible mistake. I've been so awful to all of these ghosts and I need to do the penance for my crimes. And it's just a complete 180. Throughout the entire movie, there's no lead up to that, right? Like, there's no hint of her having a conscience. There's no hint of the idea that maybe deep down she knows what she is doing is wrong. It's literally just, she's evil. Just kidding. She's realized what she did is wrong and now she's good. And it was too fast for me. Again, I think this is a concept that can be done well. Like, there's definitely countless examples in fiction of a character who is like the villain of the story, right? Ending up by the end of the story kind of going down the path of redemption, or at least starting to go down the path of redemption. That's not an uncommon thing to see in books and movies and such, but it's just not done well in this case, and it really, really bothered me. The other thing with the pacing there was how the students of Haunted High react to Revenant's change of heart, because again, the entire movie, and like long before that, like long before what we see, she has been basically torturing them, punishing them for every little thing, and then at the end of the movie, she's like, just kidding guys, I realized what I did was bad and I'd love to still be your principal because I've had a change of heart and I'm going to be a good principal now. And everyone cheers. It felt like one of those really old Tumblr posts, like those shitty Tumblr posts where they tell this story of like, I stood up for this person, no one else would, and then at the end of the story, everyone on the bus clapped. That's what it felt like that. It really was that. It was so, so bad, because you cannot tell me that these students have been like physically and psychologically tortured by this woman for who knows how long, and then just because she said she's sorry and that she's changed, they're going to believe her and be happy that she is still going to be an authority figure in their lives. Like, if I was one of those students, I'd be like, yeah, she's lying. Obviously, like for sure she's lying. And like as soon as Spectra and the other people who have kind of meddled in her plans and revealed what her plan was are gone, she's going to go back to it, right? Like, they have to have trust issues after this, but nope, the movie will not address that. Everyone cheered and it's a happy ending. And I understand that this is probably because it was written for kids and so the writers wanted there to be a happy ending. But the main issue, I think, was the pacing. I just think that the pacing was wrong. I think that if you were going to do something like this, there needed to be some hints throughout the movie that it was going to happen instead of it just being like this super sudden shift. And yeah, basically not a terrible premise, but executed very poorly in my opinion. I do actually have one more like big broad category that I want to talk about for Haunted, but it's the one that I'm most excited about. So before I let myself get to that, I wanted to talk about some just miscellaneous things that I feel like I couldn't make this video without pointing out, because there were some little things that all were good, all positive things that I wanted to mention that didn't really fit into a category, but like I didn't want to not give props to the movie, you know? So the first thing I want to say is that Haunted was honestly very visually appealing for a lot of the film. I mean, not literally every frame was amazing, but like a lot of it was so pretty. And most of the Monster High media that I've seen thus far hasn't been exceptionally pretty or exceptionally ugly. It kind of just was a visual medium. Like I didn't have a lot of feelings about it. But this was so nice. Like the colors that they chose and the way certain scenes were animated were so, so beautiful. And so I just feel like I had to shout that out to the animators and the artists that worked on this movie. It was very, very well done in my opinion. I also wanted to say, very strangely for a Monster High movie, there wasn't really a subplot. And normally I'm sitting here filming these videos complaining about subplots in these movies because there are always so many of them and it's always so distracting. But Haunted really genuinely didn't have a subplot, and it was so refreshing. Obviously, I did have some problems with the movie, like I've been ranting for X amount of time here, but I genuinely did enjoy it, and I did obviously think that there was some good to it as well. And I really do think that Haunted was a much better movie for the fact that it didn't have any subplots. Like, I can only imagine how many more complaints I would have if there were subplots in this movie, but everything tied into the main narrative, and I think it allowed it to be a much more cohesive story and a much more interesting story because we could focus on the main narrative instead of being distracted by all of these little side projects. And then the last kind of more minor thing that I wanted to mention is that watching Haunted actually made me want more Haunted dolls, and that's only notable because that's not something that I feel very often. I know a lot of you guys have said that you tend to like enjoy dolls that are linked to media, and so you'll want to buy dolls of characters that you like, and I do feel like that's a pretty common thing for people. I don't watch really that much doll media. A lot of it just doesn't connect to me, and so it's not an experience that I have very frequently outside of like maybe a little bit of the new Gen 3 Monster High show, because even though I haven't seen that, like I know certain things about it, and so I kind of feel connected to certain characters in that way, or like Disney characters sometimes. But for the most part, I buy a doll solely for its aesthetic purpose and not because I like the character. Like for example, I saw maybe 3 episodes of Rainbow High before I gave up because I just was not enjoying the show. So any Rainbow High doll that I've bought, I didn't buy because I liked the character or like I felt a connection to the character. I just bought because they were pretty. But with Haunted, watching the movie, it made me connect to these characters in a way that I don't usually experience, specifically Porter and Kiyomi. Like, I've always thought that their dolls were like pretty good to good. My feelings have kind of gotten better over the years towards them, but I've always thought that they were at least decent dolls. I've just never felt connected to them. But watching this film made me want to go out and try to find them secondhand because I liked them in the movie and it made me want their dolls. And while that might not be notable for everyone, because that is such a rare feeling for me to experience, I feel like it says a lot about Haunted that it was able to elicit that in me. But that's all the little stuff, which means that I finally get to talk about the ships. And I pretty obviously do not mean either River's Faery or Vandala's pirate ship. I've said a few times on this channel during the course of talking about old Monster High content that I am like a shipper to my core. I love me a good fan fiction, and anytime I'm watching movies or reading books or anything, like anytime I'm engaging with any sort of fiction, I'm looking for characters that I can ship together, okay? I love romance. I love, like, finding non-canon ships is so fun for me, and Haunted was just like a little treasure trove of ships for me to enjoy, and I loved every second of it, like, in regards to the romance and the potential romance. It was amazing. So first off, let's talk about the canon one, which is Porter and Spectra. I was so unprepared to care about them in the way that I do, because like I said, going into this movie, I honestly didn't really like Spectre's character, and I didn't know anything about Porter's character. So I knew just from being on the internet that they were a thing in this movie, and like I knew that was going to be something that I was going to be watching, but I didn't expect that I would feel anything about it, and boy was I wrong. They just have such good energy together. Every single time they were on screen, I felt like there was chemistry between them. I felt like it was meaningful and impactful and enjoyable, and I just loved all of it. And when there's like the fake out and you think that Porter has betrayed Spectra, I was devastated for her. I felt so bad. But then you find out that he didn't actually, I'm like almost gonna cry. You find out that he didn't actually betray her, and instead he like tricked Revenant. I forgot her name. I'm so excited. He tricked Revenant, and now he's going to be able to take on Spectra's punishment as well as the punishment of her friends, so that they can all go back to Monster High, and he's like sacrificing himself for her. Sorry, what? I thought I was gonna lose it. I'm gonna lose it right now. It was so cute, so sweet, and I genuinely don't normally feel this way about like canon couples. Typically speaking, the ships that I enjoy are non-canon couples, but Porter and Spectra got to me. They were so precious, and I loved them. However, Porter is not the only person that I think had good chemistry with Spectra, at least like within the scope of Haunted. I feel like her and Claudine had something going on, and I do understand that Claudine could probably have been any character. Like, I don't think that she was picked as someone who is like portrayed as being closer to Spectra in this movie because it's Claudine. I think that she was just the person the writers chose because they needed someone who was a little bit closer to Spectra to kind of push the plot along. But they picked Claudine, and I think it really worked, okay? Because I think that they're kind of cute together. Like, I just feel like their interactions are really wholesome, and I feel like they exhibit a level of like mutual respect that is super healthy in a relationship. And also the fact that while Spectra is like at Haunted High and like away from the rest of the group, Claudine is writing down every single thing that happens to them because she knows that it will make a good story for Spectra's blog, and she's like wanting to take notes for her. It's so cute. Okay, I understand it could just be a friendship. I don't care. I think it's precious. I think that that would absolutely be an appropriate plot point for a lesbian rom-com. And I thought it was so unbelievably cute. And I also feel like at certain points, Spectra was like high-key giving Claudine the eye. Now, I'll put the screenshot up here. I did show this to my husband because I was trying to make a point to him. And he says it looks like Spectra is kind of being snarky or maybe making fun of Claudine. I thought that it looked like, wow, look at her go. Look at that pretty cheerleader. I love Claudine. She's so cute and talented. That's the vibe I got. I guess y'all can let me know. Maybe I'm just reading too much into it and I'm too excited by this and like it's all in my head, but that's fine because that's what ships are and that's like the fun part. I would be very curious to know if any of y'all have ever gotten this vibe from Claudine and Spectra. Because I definitely did. Again, at least within Haunted, because they were written very specifically in this movie. But, like, I don't care. I'll take it, and I'm here for them now. And then lastly, of course, we have Draculaura and Kiyomi. Now, I did a video before I started watching all of the Monster High media where I ranked Monster High ships without knowing much about the characters or the ships, because I thought it would be fun to do that and then do it again after I watch all of the shows and stuff. And I think I mentioned in that video that I understand Draculaura and Kiyomi are not an ideal representation of like maybe the most healthy actual relationship, like not what you should strive for in your real life, because essentially Kiyomi is just stalking Draculaura for the majority of the movie. Like, I get that that's not what you want in a real, like actual life relationship, but I've already divulged in this video that I like fanfiction and shipping, and also that I like sad stories, okay? So we're just gonna get a little more personal, and I'm gonna say I don't think that it's a leap for me to say that I also like dark romance. Like, that's not super surprising, right? So for me, it's weird, and it's not okay, but like, in just the right way. Like, it's weird, but it's also kind of cute, you know? I know that's wrong, but it's right in my heart. And while they do like not have a lot of on-screen time together where they both know they're on screen together, when they do know that they're in the same room as each other, I think that they're incredibly cute. Like, Kiyomi is so flustered when she meets Draculaura face to face for the first time, and it was absolutely precious. They have their limited interactions, but I just feel like it was really wholesome, and like I definitely felt some sparks there. And also, Kiyomi pulled a Porter and sacrificed herself for Draculaura. Like, she literally jumped in front of her and took detention chains for her. Sorry, absolutely adorable. So again, not a good real life romance, okay? Do not like model your relationships after that, because that's not okay. But within the scope of fiction, absolutely precious. So, needless to say, I have been very excited for this section. I loved the ships in Haunted. I had so much fun with this part, and I do think that that is a large part of why I ended up enjoying this movie so much, even though I had my problems with like the premises and stuff. But the characters, and especially the ships, definitely saved it for me.
Also, I didn't say this like while I was actively filming because this is the only shot of River and Holt together. Like it's literally just this. But from that one image, I was like, the girl with the party fairy and like the confetti cannons probably would at least be good friends with Holt the party guy. I was going wild with the ships for this movie.
And yes, that is finally all of my thoughts on Haunted. After having to skip Freaky Fusion because I was so violently not enjoying myself, Haunted felt like an absolute breath of fresh air. Obviously, it wasn't perfect. Like, I did rant for the first half of this video, but there were so many parts that I did feel were done well. Like, I think that the characters were good. I think the romance was good. The plot wasn't perfect, but I honestly think it could have been a lot worse. It just felt so nice to get to watch that after having to skip Freaky Fusion. So thank you, Haunted, for saving my day that day where I got to like watch a good movie instead of ending on a bad note. As I said before, I would love to hear your take on this movie and whether you agree or disagree with my thoughts on it. We are also rapidly approaching the end of the Gen 1 movies. I think we only have 2 more to get through, which is just kind of bizarre to think about because I feel like I've been doing this for forever, but we are getting to the end there. So the next movie, second to last on my list, at least for Gen 1, like I'm going to watch Gen 2 and then the Gen 3 show as well, but at least for Gen 1, 2 movies to go. The next one I'm going to be watching is Boo York. I'm optimistic for this one. I feel like this is going to be a good one. I'm putting my hopes high out there, so hope it doesn't let me down, but definitely be on the lookout for that video review. Hopefully coming pretty soon here. But yeah, I do hope you guys were able to enjoy this video. I hope you have a lovely rest of your day or your night, whatever it might be, and I will catch y'all in the next one. Bye, guys.